Hey folks, how's it going? So this is me, your friendly, fearless business coach. Again, just creating a short video because a number of people asked me about this in my program. So I wanted to create something that was sort of everlasting, that was going to just introduce to you about how I use events and Facebook ads to basically grow my business. So it's split up into two parts. So I'm covering the events and the Facebook ads. And by the way, I'm no means either a marketing expert or a Facebook ad. I'm literally just going to show you what I do to create results for my business, and show you how I managed to drive my Facebook ad spend when booking people onto events down from about £6 or £7 per person sat down to under £1 per lead, per seat. I see things like workshops and events as being a fantastic lead magnet for your business. It's a great way to build trust, and then you've got people in the room who you can kind of handle any objections in the room. So if they've got any questions about your program, your products, or your services, events are a fantastic way of kind of being able to overcome and answer all of those questions and build trust and sort of grow your business exponentially, rather than kind of doing the hope marketing of, hey, here's my PDF download, like chuck your email address in here and I'll throw a load of stuff at you. So this video is designed to be like I've designed it so it's going to add like a huge amount of value. There will be things in here which they've worked for my business but may not work for your business. Don't worry about if there's something you don't understand, don't worry about it. You can always fire me a question. I'm happy to help. What I would love, I have a coaching program called Fearless Business, so which many of you watching this will already know about, but if you want to know more, then please do ask. I won't go into too much tactical detail. Like if you're asking questions, it'd be like, well, you got to come and join the club, really, like pay to play. But in the meantime, so hopefully you'll get enough value out of this video so you can actually kind of get started. So this video, the thing is called Event Like a Pro. So basically the 5 things which I'm going to go through, I'm not going to spend masses of time on the event side of things. So Facebook ad stuff will be about a third of the way into this video, but it's useful to know how I use the events and why I'm doing the Facebook ads the way I am. So 5 things we're going to go through. So we're going to go through the event planning process, like what information do you need to actually to gather, to pull together to create an event, and actually it's not very much. I'm going to go through the practical stuff around kind of booking the venue and sort of the do's and don'ts. I'll be going through how to set up Eventbrite, create the Facebook link, and then to start the marketing and promotion process. This also assumes, like me, that you've run a few events in the past, so you've got some people in your Eventbrite platform already. If you haven't, don't worry about that too much. It's a good opportunity to start building that list up. I'm a big fan of using third-party apps, so that's why things like Eventbrite is a great sort of event marketplace. And they've got some fantastic sort of third-party integrations in there into things like Facebook and MailChimp and whatnot. So let's use those tools. They built them, so let's use them. There's no point in trying to rewrite the wheel. Then I'm going to move into, I will probably actually, for the sake of this one, skip the presentation because it'll take too long for me to walk you through my presentation process. If you want to know more about that, like ping me a message. We can set up a consultation to discuss, or a coaching session to discuss specifically that. And then the real guts of it will be the Facebook ad side of things. And that's where I think most of you will be interested. So if you're interested in Facebook ads, it's worthwhile watching the event side of things, even if you're not going to do that, just so you can see how the two things link together. But the Facebook ad side of things will be, like I said, I'm not a Facebook ad expert, but this will help you to stop basically burning money by doing things like boosting posts and doing Facebook ads and going, oh, I've done Facebook ads and it doesn't work for me. Well, I'm going to cut through a lot of that kind of sort of bullshit for you, and hopefully clear up some of the things around kind of how you target your ads and reduce your ad spend down. Cool. I hope that sounds good. So let's crack on. So first thing, planning your event. So first of all, the title, it needs to be brave. So my strapline for my events is double your turnover in 6 months. This is, there's a very well-known saying about sell people what they need, not what they want. But actually, the reality is there are three core pillars in any business. They are delivery, marketing, and sales. And what you need to do is be a bit like a newspaper with a sensationalist headline and market to what people want. And then when they're in the room, sell them what they need. So that's why you're not lying here. It's not like I can't double people's turnover in 6 months. In fact, I have done. I've doubled in the last year alone, probably about 30 businesses turnover within 6 months in the time that I've worked with them through my coaching program. So it's not lying, but I want to put a sensationalist headline out there to grab people's attention, because how many business owners out there wouldn't want to double their turnover in 6 months? Let's be fair. Small, medium, or large, doesn't matter. The next thing is then to work out who your event is for. So we're talking about kind of target market here. So in respect to the target market, who is your perfect customer? And for me, it's small businesses who attend events, because I know that they're more than likely going to convert and book on to come onto my event. Now, the reality is I know that if I want to get 100 people into a room at an event, listening to me, that probably there are only 10 or 20 people in that room who will be interested in buying my goods or services, products. But that's not a problem. The other 80 people are there to kind of create a buzz. I know that the value which I deliver during my events helps them, so that's cool. But so I want basically business owners whose businesses have kind of plateaued and they just want to take it up to that next level of growth. Maybe they're having a few issues around confidence and things like that. So you got to be really kind of, I know that's not terribly specific, so we can draw down a bit further. So I work predominantly with service-based businesses, accountants, lawyers, coaches and consultants, and agencies. So I used to run an agency for 12 years. So you can be much more specific in your targeting if you want to, but you got to have a reasonably clear idea about who your event is for. Next up is the format. So there's kind of several different formats, and I haven't played much with webinars. For me, 2-hour seminars work really well. Next thing for me is to move up to paid workshops. If I put on a free seminar, typically I can if I market it 4 weeks in advance, and that's part of the planning, then I can fill the room with at least 40, 50 plus people. Last one I did, I had 97 tickets booked and 60 people arrived at the event, which is fantastic. Sold in the room, which is even better. So, and that's the idea with this seminar. It's just about kind of building trust and then having a good offer. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the presentation, but having a really substantial offer at the end of it to give to people, so that they kind of start on their journey of working with you. The seminar format is it's like a lead magnet, basically. It's a 2-hour opportunity to build trust with a group of people in the room and have a bit of fun whilst you're doing it. I absolutely love talking in front of audiences, so it kind of makes sense to me to do that. The workshop format is much longer, so you might be talking about a 2-hour seminar versus a half-day or full-day workshop. Workshops typically tend to be paid because the cost tends to then become sort of exponential in terms of like laying on lunch, coffees all day, booking a room all day, and things like that, and other resources which you've got to put into it. So there are costs. The difference, though, between free and paid for is really quite important, though, because free, you're removing all of the barriers to entry for people booking it. So the idea is you want to get bookings. It's not about kind of how much you're going to sell. Even if you charged £1 for a workshop, you've still got to overcome that attrition of people like having to part with their hard-earned cash. Even if it's just £1, people still have to make this buying decision up here. So think very carefully about whether you're going to do a free event or a paid event. And then finally, the webinar. The webinar is the best one because you can do it for free. You can do it out of your back room, your office, doesn't matter, in a cafe or anything like that. You can pre-record them. You can do loads of fun stuff with webinars. I haven't yet gone down the webinar route, although ironically now I'm thinking that I can actually potentially use this recording as an evergreen webinar. Hey, I've just created a new product. Awesome. So, but webinars are great because again, you've got the opportunity to get multiple people in a room. You can handle any objections at that point, answer any questions, create a bit of a buzz and chat and things like that. Give away offers or paid for offers. So the next thing then comes down to what the person is going to get out of it. So for me, I'm very clear about kind of what the outcomes are going to be. So I give 3 of my best tools from my coaching toolkit. Not my best ones; they're all good. But I give away 3 of my best tools during the seminar because I know that they're the ones that create a really great impact on the individual from a mindset perspective. So It's about kind of activating people's brains, opening their minds up a little bit and changing the perceptions of their own business. So that's kind of what I want my visitors to my event, my guests to my events, to get out of that event. And you've got to be really specific. I know a lot of people are kind of like, there's a big hoo-ha about GDPR at the moment if you're based in the UK. And there are various people who have nothing to do with GDPR putting on GDPR based events. And you're kind of like, well, actually, there's an incongruence there between what you actually do and what you're going to be delivering during the event. So I think you've got to be really clear about what the guest is going to get out of that event, and don't confuse them. It's got to work within your product ecosystem. That's something, if you want to drill down and know a bit more about that, then lean into the Business Startup group, Facebook group, or drop me a message and we'll have a chat about it. The final thing then is about, in terms of planning the event, is so step 4 is what's in it for you, what's in it for them. Step 5 is then what's in it for me. So I'm putting on the event, so I want to get something out of it. Now, I've put on my first event, cost me somewhere in the region of about £1,500 to put on. By the time I kind of nailed the Facebook ads and got the event structure format sorted out and got the offers sorted out in the room, the cost for that event, my last event, was just over £400, including that. So probably even less than £400. Now I know when I put an event offer out, how much each one of those offers is going to be worth. So the last event, I wanted to sell a 12-month package to the Fearless Coaching Program, the group program, plus a few extra gifts. I also give away a copy of my book during the event as well, so that kind of gets bundled up in the costs, I guess. That probably puts the costs up a little bit. You don't have to do that, but you can if you want to. And also, I kind of incentivize people to show up to the event, because then I'll do things like potentially give them access to my e-learning programs. You could sell an e-learning program in the room. I've done that quite successfully. At an event last year, I sold 10 e-learning programs in the room at £95 each, which kind of pretty much paid for that really expensive first event which I put on. That was cool. But really, the event lifetime value for me is made up of sort of my various different product offerings. So the e-learning program, my group coaching program, and then finally one-to-one. So obviously it's the one-to-one clients who are kind of, they bring in the greatest amount of return on investment for me. So typically, if I fill a room with 40 people, and this is where it's important to start to get to grips with the numbers and your conversion rates. And the first event, you'll be shooting in the dark, but just call it information gathering, call it whatever you like. So my first event, I sat 76 people. I sold 10 e-learning programs in the room, which pretty much covered the costs. And actually, off the back of that, I then got 2 one-to-one clients. One came on immediately, sort of in a month afterwards, and one came on. They said basically they weren't going to be ready for about 3 or 4 months, and the true to their word, they did sign up. Those one-to-one clients were worth about £5,000 each in terms of customer lifetime value. So for the sake of a £1,500 investment, which most of that I got back initially in the room, actually then I produced some in the region about £8,000 to £10,000 worth of event lifetime value. So you've got to be really clear about what your products do and deliver, and how much event lifetime value you're going to create through selling your products at the event. That's the purpose of putting on free events. Really important to know that. So the next thing then, we drilled, just to kind of go into a bit more detail about the events. So there we go. So Fearless Business, double your turnover in 6 months. So it's kind of quite a sensationalist headline. There's the other bubble, which you can see here, is around free versus paid for. So I did, I always come back to free for the 2-hour seminars. It just seems to be the best format. It gets the best amount of engagement. People talk about it. They tag people in. Like, this guy's really cool. He's giving us some stuff for free. What you can do is you can do kind of upsells. So you could have like a VIP package where people get to spend 20 minutes with you answering questions on a one-to-one basis. Or it could be that you have you could do upsells in there for your e-learning program. So it's either free, or if you want free and to attend the event plus the e-learning program, it's like £9 or £19 or £29 or something like that. So make the event free, but you can have upsells in there. That's quite important. Next up, kind of, here we go. So this is then going into the details about it. So target market, service-based businesses, and what are they looking to, what outcomes are we going to create? So develop fearless goals, turn a service into a product, how the internet has broken marketing, and the 3 common pricing mistakes that businesses like yours make. So that people come into this like they're not totally blind to what it is that I'm offering. They know what they're going to get out of that 2-hour seminar. Other things I also throw in is half an hour's worth of networking at the start of it. So even if they don't like my presentation, well, they've had an opportunity to meet other business owners and talk to them about like what they do and stuff. And people love talking to people. It's fantastic. What is the result as well? How are people going to leave the room? And I tend to, like with mine, it's a bit vague, but fearless in business. If you go to the event, you'll know what that means. Less stressed and laser focused, ready to kickstart your business. That's based on feedback that I've had from events. That's how what people have said when they leave the events. That's how they feel. So I've just chucked that in there, and then kind of a couple of calls to action. But first, you need to take part in a fearless business event. Come with an open mind. Maybe check out my book. Maybe check out the Facebook group. So, kind of we're just again we're warming people up before they attend the event. Few bonuses. So if you do actually show up, you're going to get a free copy of my book. Well, that's worth at least $11.99. In fact, it's actually priceless because my book, Take Your Shot, is absolutely awesome. If you haven't read the book, you should. And then just, I know these are Amazon reviews, but again, a bit of social proof to say that, hey, actually, this guy's pretty cool. He wrote a book, and on a 4-hour plane journey, it totally changed my business. Lots of familiar ideas in the story, but compared it to a book called The Goal by Elia Goldratt, who's an awesome author, and it's a great book. So that's really cool. Excellent book, some really key insights, easy to understand, highly recommend it. Now, if people think that about the book, they'll get a similar sort of effect because how I do my business, how I run my business, how I talk, how I dress, everything, there's a consistent kind of process there. So if people like get the reviews, if they get that far down the event thing before booking, they know kind of what they're in for, basically, that I'm an honest kind of guy. So next up, how do we calculate event lifetime value? So, excuse me. So essentially what you want to do is you want to work out how many free tickets you're going to give away. So it could be like 40. How many people do you expect to show up? Now, typically, because I've run lots of events, I know it's somewhere between 45 and 55%. Last event, I got 60 to 65%, which is pretty cool. Then you want to know what your conversion rate is going to be. So the conversion rate could be, well, like I said, if I had 76 people in the room and 10 of them bought the e-learning program and 2 bought the one-to-one coaching program. So I can work out what my conversion rate is depending on how many people I get in the room. And then finally, what's the offer? So is it a breakthrough session, a consultation? Is it an e-learning program? Is it a book? Is it what is it? How much is it? If it's a coaching program, fantastic, because then you'll have, or an agency, you'll have recurring revenue being generated. How long do clients typically stay with you for? So this is called like the customer lifetime value, basically. So if a coaching client stays with you for 6 months and they pay £500 a month, the customer lifetime value there is £3,000, just to give you an idea. So then you can watch this bit back. I'm just going to rattle through it. So then the event lifetime value is free tickets times by your show up rate, times by your conversion rate, times by your average customer lifetime value, which gives you your event lifetime value. So like 100 free tickets, 50% show up rate, 10% conversion rate, and average customer lifetime value of £500 leaves you with an event lifetime value of £2,500. Now, if you know it's going to cost you more than £2,500 to put that event on, probably not worthwhile, unless you've got a load of stuff going on in the back end. I'll explain that something for another day. But if you know that it's only going to cost you a couple £100 to put that event on, or £200 up front to get you £2,500 in the back end, cool. So we know that this event's worthwhile putting on. So next up, booking the venue. So essentially, I'm just going to read this out. It's like PowerPoint presentation, like 101. Just don't do it, but I'm going to read it out. So find a good room, light and airy in a hotel, with good coffee, easy access, and lunch potentially if you're doing a day-long workshop. A lot of my events, so the free seminars especially, I'd go theatre style, and the reason for that, so theatre style is when all of the seats are lined up. You can then also have like, what do they call it? Where you have the round tables, like a bit more like a glitzy kind of event. You might choose that for a workshop. There's a specific name for it. It's totally gone out of my brain. Anyway. So there's lots of different seating arrangements, but I go theatre style because you can get more people in there. Don't need the bells and whistles. If you're doing something more creative, then maybe you do want like the bigger tables so people can get spread out. There's I'll probably think of it at some point. I always provide coffee for guests because it's a nice thing to do. Basically, don't expect them always to pay for drinks and things like that. We want to give them a pleasant experience, push them into a nice emotional state so that they think we're a great guy. And this isn't about manipulating people. This is just like being a decent human being. Like, give them good coffee. Like, you know, it's not expensive either. It's like normally a couple of quid a cup if you book a nice hotel. And then also, when you're booking a hotel, so this is like quite a key tip here. If you think you're going to get 40, the hotel will charge you up front 40, and you don't get any money back from that. So what I tend to do is I'll underquote the number of attendees when I book a hotel, for example. So if I'm hoping to get 50 people into a room, I tell them, well, I want to make sure that if I need the bigger room, I can have the bigger room, but I'm only expecting 30 people. Remember as well that in terms of like the number of people who show up to a free event, you will get a 45 to 55% turnout rate, i.e. 45 to 55% of people won't show up. So you always want to overbook your event. I didn't make that clear enough in the last slide. So always overbook a free event, but underquote the amount of people you're expecting to the hotel, because then the amount of money which you pay up front is cheaper. Now, the good thing is that if you do end up with more people than you'd anticipated, yes, it's going to cost you a little bit more, but you end up with more people than you anticipated, which is great. But like I said, if you overquote it, the hotel won't give you a refund on that. You can't renegotiate it. Some might, but from my experience, not many have. So then we move on to the marketing and promotional side of things. So you've obviously, so you know about Eventbrite. So we add the event on Eventbrite, and then basically we're going to use the Eventbrite platform as a first stage of marketing your event. So in this instance, you've got two options down here, which are both add to Facebook and email invitations, which you can see highlighted down in here. What happens basically is, so you need to make sure you've got a Facebook page in order to add this to Facebook. So you'll create something called you just follow the wizard, click on the link, follow the wizard. It'll punch the event through onto your Facebook page as an event. Now, the beauty of doing that is there's an option in Facebook. In fact, if I got a slide. Yeah, there's a slide a bit further back. So let me just back up a bit. So one of the benefits of it is basically it'll allow people to then book your Eventbrite event directly from Facebook, which if you just add the event into Facebook, you can't necessarily do that. You have to put an event URL in there, and it won't have that link in it. So this is really important. And you'll get this Facebook event link, which is cool. So you know then that it's linked up. So the other thing which I also then do is email invitations. Now I've run like about 20 or so events, not just for Fearless, but also for a local networking group I run. So I market to both of those. And basically that I use this create invitation option that Eventbrite produces. So if you've already run events or you've got a marketing list, you can invite people straight into Eventbrite. Again, they've got templates in there. They don't look pretty, but they've got templates in there. You can fire it out to your list, and then there'll be buttons in there that will take them straight back to Eventbrite so they can book. So it's basically making this as easy as possible for the guests who you're inviting. So we create the invitation. There's an option here to add guests, and then we'll come on to schedule in a second. So when you click on the add guest button, you get this. So it shows all of your previous events that you've run. And you can actually just select, I could go through here and select Fearless events or my StroudNet networking events, whatever it is. And then click add. And then basically it will create a list of people who it's going to send it to. And then the other thing I've highlighted down here is scheduling. Now, if you're occasionally like me, kind of a bit of a workhorse, and you're creating the event at 9 o'clock at night, well, actually, the reality is that probably most of your audience might not be in the market for booking an event at 9 o'clock at the night. Having said that, I listed an event last night at about midnight, and somebody booked at 5 past midnight. So, hey, there are some night owls out there. But what we want to do is try and push this event out, this invitation out, when most people are going to be available to it. So I always tend to do it the next day at about 7 o'clock in the morning, so that when people are starting to fire up their phones, laptops, PCs and things like that, my invitation is at the top of their inbox. So it's one of the most recent emails which they received. And then we hit send now. So I've gone through this, add your guests. Now, in Facebook, A good friend of mine, Nick Byrne, he says this boost button is like the gateway drug for Facebook ads. So do not use boost because you will just end up burning cash. The audience won't be as targeted. You're allowing Facebook to do a lot of the work, and actually Facebook is an algorithm. It may not have all of the information. So what we want to do, and what I'm going to show you later on with Facebook ads, is how to market your event properly using Facebook ads, not the boost button. So I don't know if I made that clear, but do not, in fact, under any circumstances, ever boost a post. You're better off like trying to get to grips with Facebook ads and understanding the value that it can deliver. Also, you've got the option, you see there's a few of my friendly faces. I probably should have blurred some of these out. But you've got the option, once the event is on Facebook, of inviting friends. So if you know that there are people in the local area who've gone to other events and things like that, well, you can invite them all to come along to your event, which is pretty cool. And so the other reason why I've got this in here is, so now once you've promoted that event, pushed the event from Eventbrite to Facebook, that'll just appear on your page. But what you could also do is, if you're a member of other groups and they allow you to do it in their description, in their terms, you could just go through and add your events to a number of other websites, Facebook groups that are available out there. So rather than it just appearing in one place, actually the event appears in, half a dozen other groups which you're a member of that you've engaged within, if they let you do that. And again, that's just a way of reaching out to different audiences, basically, who may have heard about you but may miss if they're not a member, if they don't like your Facebook page, they'll miss that event. Cool. So I'm not going to go, like I said, I'm not going to go into detail in the presentation because I feel that that's something for, if you want to know more about that, you come and speak to me directly. There's no magic or anything like that in there, but there's a specific format, and it does take about 20 minutes to half an hour to kind of talk through. I may eventually do another presentation about that or talk about that later. But what I want to do is kind of really get to grips with the Facebook ads, which is kind of the... and I'm going to make a note of that we're 26 minutes 42 in, because 26:42 for 26 minutes. So Facebook ads are the things really which makes my event successful at the moment. Now, if Mark Zuckerberg goes and changes any of the rules around events or makes Facebook ads more expensive, then this is kind of going to screw up this this strategy which I use at the moment. But hey ho, whilst it's rolling, and I reckon it'll be fine for the next year or two at least, I'm just going to roll with it too. So, right, what I'm going to cover during this Facebook ad section is around the budget that you're planning to market your event, so versus your event lifetime value. If you're jumping in at this point, I'd suggest you go back and watch the slide about event lifetime value, because that's quite important. I'm going to go through the ad format again. Like, I'm not a Facebook ad expert. I'm just telling you what I do, and it seems to work and get people booked on for less than £1 per person booked at the moment. So I'm just telling you what I know. There'll be other probably Facebook ad experts out there maybe watching this, who maybe I'll get some tips out of it. Maybe they'll spot some stuff that I'm missing, but I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you what I know. So I'm going to go through what I do from an ad format perspective, title, descriptions, calls to action and stuff like that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit around split testing and the 3 different types of ads which I've tested, and which one I've really kind of honed in and settled on. And then finally, I'm going to talk to you about kind of the actual Facebook ad structure from an audience perspective. So looking at lookalike audiences, custom audiences, and event audiences, and things like that. I hope that's cool. So kind of jumping about a little bit, but these are the 3 ads which I split tested basically. So let's have a quick look. So we'll come back to budget. So kind of just to give you an idea. So I tend to use a basic image ad. Is actually kind of the least popular one. I then have a video ad. That's kind of the second most popular one. And then this, what I call a disruptive ad. And actually this has been the most popular one for me. So this is actually one of the diagrams, one of my tools that I teach people about customer lifetime value. But for some reason it makes people stop and go back and have a look at the event. And then during those few seconds, they then go, oh, this is cool. It's a free seminar in Cheltenham. So yeah, away we go. So you can see from the structure of the ad, in terms of like, so first and foremost, and again, I got to give sort of a hat tip. There's a guy called Jamie Forrest, JP I always get the name on, JPW Marketing. Jamie Forrest is a Facebook ads expert, and he kind of helps me out with the ad structure. Started to introduce me to kind of audiences and things like that. So I owe him an awful lot, but so he's the one who kind of taught me this sort of structure. So basically what we want to do is have like something really clear at the top of it. So who we're speaking to, business owners of Gloucestershire. So it's location based, it's talking about our target market. And then you're invited, so call to action, you're invited to a free seminar at the Jury's in Cheltenham on Friday the 26th. So it's got all of the basic details in there. And then if they click more, it's going to get them, give them a few more details about what this seminar is going to do for them, basically. So there's like 3 bullets and a couple of other details in there. And then we've got the image. Like I said, it says interested there, but actually if you click into that ad, you then get the option to actually book a ticket directly from Eventbrite, which is pretty cool. So I've split tested like numerous different ads. I mean, I've spent thousands of pounds on Facebook ads and finally settled on this kind of being the most popular, but do always split test across your different audience. It may be that this thumbnail wasn't right for this video, or the video was too long, because this particular video is about sort of 2.5 minutes, so people maybe didn't watch all of it. This is a bit kind of too salesy, and people will probably just scroll past that potentially. So I found this disruptive type of ad, like make it colourful, make it bright, make it like scribbles and a bit of a mess. It seems to attract people's attention. It works for me, like I said. So then we're kind of going to go into the budget side of things. So now I actually set for the last event, I actually only ended up spending about £100 to book 97 people onto the event. But actually, I would have been willing, because I knew that if I filled the room up with 50 people, I'd have at least 1, maybe 2 ongoing coaching clients. I'd sell some people onto my group coaching program, so that would create a customer lifetime value in its own right. And actually, the venue only cost me 250 quid, so I was willing to spend £300 on Facebook ads. Now, one of the key things is what we want to do is run the ads right up to the day before the event, because people will still book at the last minute. I did this similarly for my networking event, and in January we had 17 people book on the day before. That's 17 people out of 60 in total who attended the event. So schedule it to start straight away and end literally like the day before your event. And like the time looks a bit random, but hey ho. So my event was on the 26th of Jan. And then run the ads all the time. Basically, you could schedule it if you wanted to run between like the most popular times. You know, like I know that my audiences tend to be online at lunchtime on Facebook, and sort of later on in the evening once the kids are kind of gone to bed. So sort of 7 to, I don't know, 10 p.m. So you could potentially run it on a schedule. I've never split tested that. Hey, maybe that's something I should do. But I'd tell I'm lazy, so I'd just run the ads all the time, basically. So next up, we're kind of getting into the real guts of like the Facebook Ads Manager and like the control panel. And there's a few things that you'll see in here which will be familiar. So the ad which we're doing is an event ad, and what we want to do. So this stuff on the right is really, really important. We want this needle to be bolt upright. So that it says that we're not too specific, we're not too broad, our audience is clearly defined. Now the green band actually goes like, you know, for a big part of it. Also, what we don't want is the potential reach to be absolutely massive. We don't want it to be into like the hundreds of thousands. I mean, it depends on the event. I guess if you're like Tony Robbins or somebody, you probably want it to be going out to hundreds of thousands of people, and you got the cash. But actually, the reality is we want it to be very specific. So I'm talking about kind of local event-based marketing here. You could use this tactic if you wanted to do bigger events, and probably actually, if I wanted to grow my Fearless events, I'd probably take them to London or Reading or Birmingham or a bigger city. You know, so that's one way of doing it. Like I'm not going to draw people into an event in Cheltenham. Like, let's be fair. Well, I do, but not from outside of Gloucestershire probably. And then the other thing is this estimated daily results. So what I try and do is I'll adjust my budget basically to make sure that the reach is somewhere approaching 1,000 people a day. Because then when you start reaching 1,000 people a day, you get this this second bar appear, which is for the estimated number of event responses. And so if I'm getting 6 to 21 event responses a day and reaching 1,000 people a day, that's pretty cool. And actually, so what it's, in terms of like budget, that's why it's better off to start with a really high budget. Now, what Facebook is going to do is eke out that budget over the course of the lifetime. So if you're doing a 4-week campaign, it'll eke out the £300 over the course of the event. So, but what we want to do is maximize the amount of event responses as quickly as we possibly can. So we may only be willing to spend 300 quid, but if you're brave with your budget and stick in 300 quid, knowing that you'll probably get everybody booked on in that first week, and it'll only cost you 100 quid. I mean, Facebook's like, woohoo, this person's like going to spend 300 quid. So they're like, yeah, let's just throw this out all over the place and we'll get loads of engaged people and we'll give it to the right people. But actually what you do is you spend 100 quid, get your 70 or 97 bookings and switch it off. And you've only spent 100 quid. So actually being brave with this this budget and the scheduling is like absolutely vital. And ideally, like I said, we want to get to this point whereby we've got this estimated daily reach up over 1,000 and this event responses thing pops up because that's just triggered something in Facebook's algorithm to say this guy's promoting events and he's got a budget for it. So I'm not going to go too much into creating custom audiences. There'll be loads of advice and tips and tricks and stuff like that out there. How I do it is I create a basic custom audience of everybody who's attended my events in the past and pump that into Facebook. At the moment it's about 600 or 700 people. And then I create a lookalike audience based on that of the and basically how lookalike audiences work is they give you the closest 1% of people. So I've chosen, in terms of my lookalike audience, people based in the UK. So there's 41 million registered Facebook users in the UK. So that any lookalike audience you create, the first 1% will always be, if it's UK targeted, 410,000 odd people. And that seems like a lot, and you'd be like, oh, that's too many. That's not very targeted. But actually what it's done is out of the 41 million people it's got to pick from in the pool, it's chosen 1,000 people who the 1% of people who look the most like that initial list of people who've attended events. If that makes any kind of sense? So it should be the 414,000 people who are most closely associated to my target market. Next up, and this is one of the biggest mistakes actually. So first of all, when I my first event I did where I was booking people for like £7 to £10 per seat. I didn't have a lookalike audience like this. I didn't have a location. I wasn't really aware of this sort of stuff going on over here. So the moment I created a detailed lookalike audience based on people who'd attended my event, the event bookings for my Bristol event dropped down to about it's about £4-ish. So it halved pretty much. The next thing is this location thing here. Now most people will go, my event's in Cheltenham, so I'll do a 40-kilometre radius around Cheltenham. Now again, that's quite vague. So there's something called polyagonal searches. This is probably the stuff that like Facebook ad gurus don't want you to know because they're like, this is our secret sauce. Like, why this guy's telling you, like, this is the secret sauce I'm giving you now, and it works for me. And hey, by the way, like when you're first starting out with Facebook ads, like the money you spend isn't wasted; it's information gathering. Like you will waste a lot of money on Facebook ads before you get it right. I certainly have. So I'm trying to save you a few quid here. So GL12 is what we call a polyagonal postcode search. So it's not, it's a very specific grid on a map of where that location sits. And what happens is we're going to target people who specifically live in that location because we know that they're more likely to come to our event because they live closer to it. So if you want to know more about this, like you're going to have to join. I'm not going to give you this list. You can go and find your own postcode lists if you want to. But I've got some great text files available if you're a Fearless Business member, and to make that job a lot easier for you. So I can give you these polyagonal searches, but you're going to have to give me some juice, I'm afraid, because it took me a long time to get to work out where to grab that information from, and which I know is a bit tight of me. I suppose I could help you out. Maybe you could just donate some beer tokens or something. But like this, when I started targeting specific polyagonal postcodes like this, my cost per person sat again dropped by more than half. So it moved from about £3 to £4 down to about £1 to £2, which was a massive difference. So just with these two things alone, I've moved from sort of £7, £8, £9 per person booking down to like £1 per person booking. It's absolutely phenomenal when it works, and it doesn't always work. It depends. Like there's a lot of other variables, like when you launch your promotion, like what other promotions are going on and things like that. If you run 2 ads, similar ads at the same time, effectively they're competing against each other for this reach, this traffic. So it could potentially cost you more. So there's a lot of variables which are kind of going on there. I kind of tend to use sort of fairly vague sort of demographics. Like I want everybody to come along from 24 to 65. Now the last event which I did, again, probably the first 10 people that booked it were women, and then Facebook decided, well, then everybody who wants to go to this event female. So it started to slide much more towards women. So I had to create another ad, switch off my women out, because I'm not focused specifically on women, but I wanted a mix of people and genders in the room, a mix of demographics in the room, because again, it all adds to the event. I think it'd be a bit weird if people turn up. I don't know whether it'd be weird. Maybe I thought it was weird if everybody who turned up to my event was female. I don't know. Language. Make sure you put English UK in there if you're in England or wherever you're based. Target language. I haven't filled in this details in the screenshot, but again, 21,000 people in Gloucestershire. That's still quite vague. So I might want to narrow that down potentially and start to put in, business owners, entrepreneurs, whatever it might be. And you can also exclude people. So you might choose to exclude, I don't know, taxi drivers. For whatever reason, maybe you've got something against taxi drivers. So if there are people you don't want to, but you don't see this box to start off with. There's a little link which you have to click to exclude people. So if you put business owners, you then have to click another box and exclude taxi drivers. So it's just a way of narrowing down your audience and making sure you have the right people booking to turn up to your event. Cool. And then so edit placement. So I've kind of played around with this. I kind of settled on I prefer to target mobile only. I get better results through that. Occasionally I'll test it if that mobile only is not working. I might do automatic placements and let Facebook do its thing. It's entirely up to you. You've also got there's various different things. I mean, I would look at just look at Facebook's help pages around kind of the different types of platforms. And what's going to work best for your event, and kind of, again, it will depend on your audience. But for me, mobile only or automatic placement, absolutely fine. Whether you push it across to Instagram or not, it's entirely up to you if you've got an Instagram following. Optimize for ad delivery. We want event responses, bid amount automatic, so let Facebook do its work. If you do manual, you will end up paying too much. And then we want charges to be charged per impression, basically. So every time this goes out to 1,000 people, we want to be charged for it, because if our ad structure is right, if our targeting is right, if our event is appealing and can produce value, we should get quite a good conversion rate. Now, I haven't actually looked in detail as to what my conversion rates are, actually, based upon my impressions. Is probably something I should look at. But again, you can find that information in the the Facebook Ads Manager. I'm waning, so I'm going to try and wrap this up soon. So here we go. So a few stats. So this is again to show the difference between split tests. So event responses. So again, by far, this was my most. This was getting the best results for the least. It cost me a little bit more, but it was getting me more people booking. So, and yes, these were cheaper, and I suppose I could have switched that off and ramped up the spend on these. I did try that, and ultimately this ended up costing me more because too many people were just scrolling past the image ad in the video. So I settled upon the it says headshot there, but it's not. It's the disruptive image, basically. And you can see here, great relevancy score, lots of people taking action. We're talking like 19 event bookings for 10 quid at this point. I think, like I said, in the end, I booked 97 people for just over £100, which is a pound a seat. I mean, that's amazing. So you're going to get better results early on, and then the ad will keep on getting repeated to the same people after that. So when this starts to kind of creep up, you probably want to start to think about duplicating your ad and tweaking a couple of things in it. Maybe change the ad copy or drop in another image or something like that, just so people get something different. Again, I'm lazy. I didn't do it for this campaign, but if I was doing a bigger campaign, perhaps I would. So that's that, basically. So if you've got any questions, jump onto the either the Business Startup group on Facebook, hit me up. So you can just search like on Twitter for Robin Waite, on Facebook, Instagram. I'm all over that. You can buy one of my books, Take Your Shot. They're both on, or Online Business Startup. They're both on Amazon. And if you want to know more about Facebook ad side of things, then like get yourself booked in for a consultation with me. The consultation won't focus on Facebook ads, by the way. I tend to look at a much more strategic perspective of your business, and we will be talking about whether business coaching is something for you. But hey, get in touch if you've got any questions. Like pop them into the feed below, and I will be sure to come back to you.